And we can go over to Lviv now and live to John. Good to see you, John. So despite Russia's offer to scale back its assault, artillery is still rumbling near Kyiv and shelling is continuing in the north, especially around Chernihiv. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is that is continuing tonight, Charles, and even over here in the west of Ukraine, here in Lviv, we've had 2 air raid warnings today. Down in the south, it's continuous shelling around Mariupol. Look, nothing has really changed since the 4th round of these peace talks began. The people can blah, blah, blah about, conditions for peace and a possible ceasefire, but it's people here, certainly in Lviv, just think it's not a joke as such, but they're very dismissive of any efforts at the moment that are being made, but because they just don't seem to have any substance. And what people here will tell you is that this is Putin just playing for time. He's redeploying troops rather than, he says he's scaling back, but in fact it's a redeployment of troops, and there seems to be no scaling back in the north. What's happening in the south, we have to wait and see, but there are reports that he's taking Russian troops from Georgia and Ossetia and sending them down south, and this war is just going to grind on and on and on, Charles. So that's my assessment. I came on an evacuation train last night from Odessa up to Lviv. It was a journey of some 17 hours. It was packed with evacuees from around the east of Odessa, where some of the worst fighting is going on, and those people were just exhausted. They were mentally at their wits' end. At Odessa, there was a soup kitchen for them, and the way they tucked into the food they were offered tells me that they hadn't eaten a proper meal, a square meal per day. So the situation really is grim, and nothing really has changed in since the peace talks began. Or sorry, they're not peace talks; they're talks about peace, Charles.
And John, where are you seeing the most intense fighting now in Ukraine? I mean, we're hearing of the most intense shelling and hostilities on the ground along the eastern front.
Yes, and that tends to be where journalists are. So this area does get reported a lot. So Chernihiv, as you mentioned, under intense shelling, and it seems that Chernihiv has been encircled by Russian forces. But there are no reporters down around Mariupol, where at least 5,000, just think about that figure, Charles, 5,000 people have already died in weeks of shelling, and it's thought that between 80 and 90,000 people are still trapped there in underground shelters and in basements, and they've been without food, water, electricity, medical supplies for days now. I just can't imagine what it's like. And I can tell you here in Lviv, there was a air raid siren about 2 hours ago, and there's a very large shopping mall behind me. And you'll recall that a week or so ago, there was a large shopping mall blitzed in Kyiv, and people know about that. And as soon as the air raid siren sounded, people rushed out of the building in their. This is what life is like every day, here, even in relatively safe Lviv. So I just can't imagine what it's like in Chernihiv and Mariupol. Charles.
And John, on the diplomatic front, I wonder what you're hearing from the Ukrainians about where things go from here, because, I mean, we've heard many analysts say that what Russia says and what it does are 2 different things, and so it has proved, hasn't it?
Yes, and Ms. Chuliak in my report was very dismissive. She really didn't even want to talk about the talks about peace, because she said, how can we trust Putin when he continues to shell and bomb our cities by day and by night? And that's a very fair point to make. I've had the misfortune, if you like, to cover several wars in my journalistic career, and they always end with a ceasefire. If you can get the ceasefire, then you're on the road to possibly some kind of peace deal. But there's no move to do that even. They just can't get beyond this first barrier of a ceasefire, because with a ceasefire you can start to get people out, civilians out of the danger zone, and it cools things down. But they haven't even touched first base on that. Now, whether there's no will well, we know there's no will on the Russian side, but maybe there isn't a will on the Ukrainian side as well. We have to keep an open mind on this, and the Ukrainians are very determined to fight the Russian aggressor and to push them out of Ukrainian soil.
John, thanks very much indeed, and stay safe. John Cookson, Arise Chief Correspondent, talking to me there from the western Ukrainian city of Lviv.